My girlfriend told her ex, "He's putting that car in my name soon, then I'll come back to you." I said nothing, faked a bankruptcy and sold it. 24 hours later, she left me. A week later, she was screaming at my door after seeing my new yacht on Instagram. I used to believe the person you love could never betray you, until one message on her phone made everything collapse. "He's putting that car in my name soon. Then I'll come back to you." I didn't ask. I didn't argue. I just smiled, staring at the most expensive car I'd ever owned, and finally understood. Her love came with a price tag. But instead of getting angry, I decided to test something. So I played along, quietly, and 24 hours later, she walked away, saying we just weren't aligned for the future. A week later, she was at my door, crying, shouting, pressing the doorbell over and over after seeing the photo I posted. Me, smiling on a brand new yacht, one she'd never even touch. Love had been a game to her. This time I learned how to play better. I've always believed that hard work eventually pays off, that if you give everything you have to something, life will one day give something back. For me, that something came in the form of a car. A sleek metallic black sports car I bought the year I turned 30. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was the physical proof that 10 years of sleepless nights, missed vacations, and endless grind had finally meant something. When I looked at it, I saw freedom. I saw the version of myself that never gave up. That car became a symbol of everything I'd built, everything I'd earned on my own. And then came Emily. I met her at a friend's birthday dinner. She was sitting across the table, quiet but confident, with that kind of calm energy that draws you in without trying. She wasn't loud or showy or the type to chase attention. She just was. We talked for hours that night, about travel, family, work, and the kind of small human dreams that make you forget time is passing. When I walked her home, she refused the cab I offered and said she preferred walking. "Money's not everything," she said with a small laugh. "I like simple things." It stuck with me, because I'd met enough people who looked at me and saw only what I could give them: the dinners, the view from my penthouse, the car parked outside. But Emily seemed different. She never asked about the price of things, never compared, never bragged. When we went out, she'd split the bill, even when I insisted. And when I told her I sometimes felt like people liked the idea of me more than the real me, she just said, "Then find someone who sees you, not your stuff." For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Months turned into a year. She became part of my routines. Morning coffee runs, weekend drives, late-night talks that stretched until sunrise. She listened when I spoke about work stress, encouraged me when things got rough, and always said, "I'm proud of you," with this warmth that made everything feel worth it. So when I started thinking about the future, she was naturally in it. I wanted to do something for her, something that showed how much she meant to me. The car came to mind. It was my most prized possession, but it didn't feel selfish anymore. I thought, maybe love means sharing the things that once felt too precious to give away. I remember one evening, she ran her hand along the hood of the car and smiled. "This thing's practically part of you," she said. I laughed. "Maybe I'll put your name on it soon." She laughed too, said, "Don't you dare," but I caught that little spark in her eyes, the kind of look that says maybe I wouldn't mind that. It wasn't a serious promise, just a half joke. But after that, she mentioned it more often. Little things like, "If you ever decide to sell it, let me be the first to know," or "Imagine our road trips if it had my name on it." I didn't think much of it. We were in love, or at least I thought we were. Then one evening, everything shifted. It was late, a Friday. We'd had dinner at my place. She said she was going to take a quick shower, left her phone charging on the couch beside me. I wasn't snooping. I had no reason to. But the screen lit up. Just one notification. A name I didn't recognize. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Something in me, that quiet instinct you never want to listen to, told me to look. I turned the phone over, and there it was. A message that froze everything inside me. "He's putting that car in my name soon. Then I'll come back to you." For a second, I couldn't breathe. The words didn't even register, like they were written in a language I'd never seen before. Then it sank in, heavy and sharp. She wasn't joking about the car. She wasn't joking about anything. And in that moment, sitting there, hearing the water running in the bathroom, her voice humming softly behind the door, I realized how blind I'd been. All those nights I thought were real. All those words I believed, all the times she said, "I love you," it all suddenly sounded like an act. The shock didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slowly, like cold water spreading under my skin. For a while I just sat there staring at the message glowing on her phone. "He's putting that car in my name soon. Then I'll come back to you." The words didn't even feel real. Emily, the woman I trusted more than anyone, was only with me because of what I owned, not who I was. Every memory of her laughter, every kiss, every time she said, "I love you," it all turned hollow. I thought about confronting her right then, but anger wasn't enough. If I shouted, she'd cry, deny it, twist it back on me. No, I didn't want to fight. I wanted truth. And truth, I realized, shows itself when people think they're safe. So I decided to wait, and to test her. The next morning, while we had breakfast, I started laying the groundwork. "You know that big contract I've been working on?" I said. She looked up from her coffee, smiling softly. "Yeah, the one with those investors from Dubai, right?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "It fell through. The company's bleeding money. We might have to cut staff. I might even have to sell the car to cover some debts." For a second, she froze. Then she gave me this perfect, rehearsed look of sympathy. "Oh, babe, I'm so sorry. You've worked so hard." She reached across the table and held my hand, but her eyes weren't sad. They were distant, calculating, empty. I smiled weakly. "I'll be fine. I just need to figure things out." She nodded, but she pulled her hand away a moment too quickly. That day she texted less. Her usual long goodnight messages turned into short replies like "hope you're okay" and "talk soon." I tried to stay calm, but every silence from her felt like confirmation. Over the next few days I deepened the act. I started answering calls in front of her, pretending to argue about finances, sighing loudly, making it sound like everything was falling apart. "We might have to let the office lease go," I said one evening. "It's worse than I thought." She didn't hug me like she used to. She didn't say, "We'll get through this together." Instead, she asked, "So, what's the plan? I mean financially." I told her I might need to sell the car within the week. Her eyes flicked toward the driveway for a split second. That was all I needed to see. By the third day, she stopped staying over. She said she was just really stressed and needed to focus on herself. I played along, acting supportive, thanking her for understanding. But inside, I was watching the walls of our relationship collapse, brick by brick. When she finally came over that weekend, something about her energy was different. Her smile was polite. Her hugs were shorter. She barely looked at me when she said, "We need to talk." I already knew what was coming. She took a deep breath, avoiding my eyes. "You know I care about you, right?" That's how every breakup starts. Soft words meant to dull the knife. But lately, I feel like we're not really aligned anymore. I think we want different things in the future. Different things. That's what she called it. Not betrayal, not greed, just different things. I stared at her for a moment, almost amused by how neatly she packaged the end of something that never truly existed. "I understand," I said quietly. She looked relieved, maybe even surprised that I didn't beg or argue. I just nodded and smiled. "You're right. Maybe we're not aligned." She reached out as if to touch my hand again, then hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. She'd already moved on in her mind, to a future without me, without my problems, without the man she once pretended to love. I walked her to the door. She hugged me quickly and whispered, "I hope things get better for you." Then she left. I stood there for a while, listening to the sound of her heels fading down the hallway, feeling nothing but clarity. She thought she'd just escaped a sinking ship. She had no idea she'd been part of a test she never knew existed, and she'd failed it perfectly. That night I sold the car. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to erase the last symbol of what she ever wanted from me. When the buyer transferred the money, I didn't feel regret, only peace. For the first time in months, my world felt quiet. I deleted her number that night. But I knew it wasn't over, not yet. Because people like Emily always come back a week past. The house felt quieter, cleaner. I thought that peace would last, but peace never lasts long when guilt starts knocking. It began with a few texts. "Hey, how are you? I've been thinking about you. I hope you're okay." I didn't respond. Then came the late-night calls, the accidental likes on old photos, and eventually, the doorbell. It was a Saturday morning. I'd just come back from the marina. I'd sold the car and bought something better, something that didn't carry the smell of her perfume or the memory of her sitting beside me pretending to care. A yacht. Not huge, but beautiful, a symbol of moving on. I took a photo that morning, sunlight hitting the deck, a quiet caption underneath. Starting a new chapter. I posted it. Within an hour, she saw it. By noon, the doorbell was ringing non-stop. When I opened the door, Emily was standing there, hair messy, eyes red. The same look she wore the night she left, only this time she wasn't composed. "You bought a yacht," she blurted out. "You said you were broke." I leaned against the doorframe, calm. "I sold the car," I said. "Got a good deal," she blinked. "So, you're not bankrupt?" I shook my head. "No." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a moment she looked like she didn't recognize me, like the version of me standing in front of her wasn't the same man she thought she'd outsmarted. I don't understand," she stammered. "Why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything?" I asked. She went quiet. The silence between us stretched until it hurt. "I thought you needed space," I added. "You said we weren't aligned for the future." Her face twisted. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean that. I was just scared. Everything happened so fast, and you said you were losing everything, and you decided to lose me first." That shut her up. Tears welled in her eyes. "I love you, okay? I was just..." Confused, I almost laughed. Not out of cruelty, but out of disbelief at how easily she reached for that word, as if love was something you could pick up and drop depending on your circumstances. "Emily," I said quietly, "you didn't love me. You loved the idea of being secure. You loved the way success looked when you stood next to it. But when you thought it was gone, so were you." She shook her head, sobbing now. "That's not true." "I was just scared you'd change. I thought we'd lose everything, and I panicked." "Yeah," I said softly. "You did. I could have slammed the door right there. But part of me wanted her to see what she'd thrown away, to realize fully that the man she abandoned had never been broken, just quiet. So I stepped aside, letting her see through the hallway windows. From where she stood, she could see the dock behind the house and the white hull of the yacht catching sunlight. Her breath hitched. "You actually bought it?" I did. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have... We could have..." "No, Emily," I interrupted gently. "There was never a we. You just never noticed until it was gone." She looked at me like she wanted to argue, but the words never came. Only tears. The kind that aren't about heartbreak, just regret. I handed her the phone she'd left at my place weeks ago, the same one that had once lit up with her betrayal. "You forgot this," I said. She took it slowly, her hands trembling. "Please," she whispered, "can we just talk?" I smiled, not cruelly, but final. "We already did. You just didn't know it." And with that I closed the door. Her voice cracked on the other side, begging, crying, apologizing. But I didn't open it again. For a long time I just stood there, listening to her footsteps fade one by one. Down the driveway, then I turned, walked back to the window, and looked out at the yacht, my quiet revenge anchored in sunlight. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about peace, about finally understanding that sometimes losing someone is the best test of what they truly valued, and she'd failed every question, a few days of silence. That was all I wanted. But peace never lasts long when guilt needs an audience. It started with one post, then another. By the end of the week, her story was everywhere. According to her, I had faked a bankruptcy to humiliate her publicly, emotionally abused her, and used my wealth to control her. She even claimed the car was technically hers because I had promised to put it in her name. At first, I ignored it, until a potential investor called me one morning and asked, "Is it true you're being sued for fraud?" That's when I realized this wasn't heartbreak. This was war. That evening she showed up again, pale, furious, eyes wild with rage. "You think you can just destroy me?" she screamed. "Everyone's calling me a gold digger." I opened the door a little wider. "If the shoe fits, you lied to me. You said you were broke. And you left," I said coldly. "That's not my lie to fix." She clenched her fists, shaking. "I'll make you regret this." I almost smiled. "I already don't. When she stormed off, I didn't chase her. I called my lawyer instead. 3 weeks later, she filed a lawsuit. Defamation, emotional distress, damages. I filed a countersuit. False allegations, defamation per se, reputational harm. In court, she looked smaller. Maybe it was the lighting. Maybe it was the weight of her own words finally catching up. Her attorney tried to twist the story, claimed she acted under emotional confusion. My lawyer simply handed the judge the screenshots, the timestamps, the proof he's putting that car in my name soon. Then I'll come back to you. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. She broke halfway through her statement, her voice cracking. I didn't mean to. The judge cut her off. Intent does not erase evidence. By the end of the week, the verdict was clear. Case dismissed. The defendant must issue a public apology and pay $5,000 in damages for spreading false claims online. When I left the courthouse, reporters were waiting. She tried to call that night. I didn't answer. A week later, the money arrived. My lawyer confirmed it. That night, I returned to the harbor. The yacht was waiting, silent, steady, untouchable. The same boat she once dreamed of sailing on together. I stood there for a long time, watching the sunset melt into the water. No victory speeches, no regret, just calm. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fire. Sometimes it's the quiet satisfaction of knowing you never had to lie. You just let someone show the truth themselves. And in that silence, as the last bit of sunlight disappeared behind the waves, I finally smiled, not because I'd won, but because I was free. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fire. Sometimes it's the quiet satisfaction of knowing you never had to lie. You just let someone reveal the truth themselves. And in that silence, as the last bit of sunlight disappeared behind the waves, I finally smiled, not because I'd won, but because I was free. Thanks for listening.